A pitiful squeal echoed through the forest. The helpless puppy was crying and crying for help. The former owner, unwilling to find a new home for his unexpected addition, had found the easier and simplest way to get rid of them. He had thrown him away and forgotten about him forever, thus condemning the puppy to a long and painful death from starvation or the possibility of becoming easy prey for some predator. The silly puppy didn't realize yet. The little creature couldn't understand how its owner could just throw it away like a useless thing. After all, he has only one life, and it won't be possible to start it again. And never again he will return to this world, and never had time to get acquainted with it. Not realizing the danger he was in, the puppy whimpered pitifully and shrilly, sometimes breaking into a howl. Somewhere out there, far away in the village, his inconsolable mother is now crying on a leash, having discovered that her cub is missing. But what does man care about these sufferings? After all, animals, for most of us, are mindless creatures that can neither think nor feel. The she-wolf has already walked more than 1 kilometer in search of food for herself and her young wolves. There's plenty of food in the forest, but to get it you have to work hard. Wolves are accustomed to long journeys from childhood. Perhaps this is what hardens their character, making them accustomed to any hardship. The she-wolf lifted her muzzle, taking in the scents and searching for those that might be useful for her. Suddenly, the predator's sensitive ears heard a thin cry, similar to the one her own cubs sometimes made. However, it was definitely not a wolf cub. A mother's cub didn't allow the she-wolf to pass by, so leaving her search for food behind, she set off towards the sounds of pitiful suffering. It wasn't long before she also smelled the scent of the one who was so desperately crying out his misfortune. It was a dog. Yes, it was a dog, albeit a tiny one, and wolves, more often than not, consider dogs their enemies and sometimes even use them as food. But the child of your enemy is still a child. In a matter of minutes, the she-wolf was able to find the abandoned puppy in these dense thickets. When the she-wolf saw the predator approaching, he rejoiced, wagging his tail and bouncing clumsily on the spot. He didn't even realize that if some other wolf or lynx had found him, his life would have probably stopped here. The she-wolf sniffed at her pup snuggled against her, as if considering what to do with him. She didn't share the joy the fluffy little thing was showing now. What to do with him? What to do? It seemed that these questions were now read in the eyes of the predator. One powerful movement of her jaws could immediately solve the problem. However, in front of the mother's eyes stood her own wolf cubs, who were just as happy about her return. But the pack would never accept an outsider, and that too was abundantly clear to her. And then the she-wolf made the only right decision. It was beginning to lighten outside the window when the old gamekeeper Stepan Petrovich opened his eyes. It's good in the taiga, Grace. Only here you can be alone with your thoughts. Remember the past and think about the future. Chasing these heavy thoughts, the huntsman suddenly heard someone stomping under the door of his house. Maybe a lynx came, he thought, quietly rising from his cot and pulling his boots on his feet. Someone started stretching insistently at the door. "Hey, who's there? Don't make jokes," purposely loudly said the huntsman, hoping to scare away uninvited guests, and meanwhile took the carbine in his hands. But after a short pause, someone again began to push the front door. Taking the carbine in the fighting position, the huntsman pulled the bolt and slowly pushed the door open. The door cracked open, and Stepan Petrovich saw a tiny puppy on the threshold. "Whoa, how?" Involuntarily astonishment burst out. The old man put down his rifle and, stepping out into the porch, looked around. It wasn't possible that this little fellow could have come from nowhere. And indeed, very soon Stepan Petrovich met his eyes with a large adult she-wolf. She looked at him from the other end of the forest, as if trying to understand whether the man would accept her gift. The gamekeeper smiled. She hadn't forgotten. She remembered the old man's eyes, immediately recalled the picture of how once, being several years younger, he had come across a helpless wolf cub in the taiga. Bitterly and tearfully he cried then, making the taiga loud with his suffering. How the wolf cub was left alone in the forest and where its mother went will forever remain a mystery to the gamekeeper. But he could not pass by someone else's misfortune and leave the abandoned wolf cub to its fate. It was in this gatehouse that his first days of life passed. Stepan Petrovich laughed silently, remembering how the tiny she-wolf tried to frighten him, showing her teeth and making scary eyes. It took a long time for the forest dweller who get used to humans, but once he did, he didn't forget. He looked at the puppy cowering on his doorstep. Well, my friend, get used to it. Now this will be your new home. The pup, unlike the she-wolf, immediately accepted the man, wagging its tail happily and trying to lick his hand. The old man laughed, looking at the behavior of his new friend. Already summer was drawing to its onset, inviting the beautiful autumn to replace it. Stepan Petrovich, sitting on the porch of his cottage, watched how a noticeably grown friend was frolicking. Now it was no longer a helpless fool, which he found on his porch almost 3 months ago, but a sturdy teenager who began to listen and understand his master. It's hard without a dog in the taiga. Stepan Petrovich knew this very well from his own experience. Quite recently, his old dog named Verny had disappeared. All his life he spent next to a man, but the dog's age is not long. And after a short illness, in one of the days, the huntsman found his faithful friend dead. Stepan Petrovich felt bitterly then, having lost his close friend, but life had already taught him to cope with heavy losses. And now Verny has been replaced by a new friend and helper. The huntsman didn't know yet what would come out of this puppy with clever eyes. But Stepan Petrovich knew for sure that there's goodness and compassion in the world of animals. He remembered and thanked his grey she-wolf for carefully brought and left this living gift. Dear viewers, if you liked this video, then give us a like and subscribe to our channel. See you later.